Good afternoon again. Thank you all for hanging in there. We're getting to the end of a long and fruitful afternoon. We have 2 more presentations. And right now, we're really, really pleased to have Comcast Chief Experience Officer, Charlie Herrin.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. You know, after sitting through sort of gap enclosures and some virtualized network pieces and 10G, I sort of wonder, am I at the right place? But we do have a technology story to tell as we talk about customer experience. And for me to talk about what we built, I wanted you guys to understand a little more about how we approached it. So it's been actually 5 years. This is not working. There we go. It's been 5 years, actually last week, when Neil Smith sat us down and said, hey, look, I want to make customer experience our best product. I want you to take a team from the product group that I was then leading and tackle this problem. And you know, they're kind of, the way I think about products, there's really 3 secrets to making a great product. One is you save someone time. The second is you save someone worry. And the third is you give someone a way of improving themselves. And I knew that we weren't going to be attacking dieting fads or education on this, so we were really going to look at the first 2. How can we save people time, and how can we save them worry on their experience? Because we had been trying for a long time and we just hadn't. So we stepped back and we started looking at, man, the experience that a cable operator serves is really, really complex. It's much more complex than I thought even coming into the job. And you think about all the various permutations, the devices that are in the home, you're dealing with appointments, you're dealing with technicians, different product sets, channel lineups, everything. It's really, really overwhelming. And my observation and the team's observation was that we had been attacking this problem almost in a bespoke way. There were projects around all of these little pain points in our delivery process, but there really wasn't a system that we were looking at. And whenever I look at something that's really, really complex, kind of I think of it's a design problem, not a customer service problem. You know, that was the first thing that we faced when he went in, is like, what are you going to do about the customer service? And we always said, and we began by saying, look, service is what happens when the experience is broken. And this is a design experience problem, not a customer service problem. We have problems in customer service, but that wasn't the root of it. And so when you have an overwhelming sea of things to do, where do you start? We start with the customer. And we looked and said, look, amongst all these pain points that you have, where are there some similarities and some patterns that we can pull out? And this is what customers told us, that there are 4 things that kind of came through in every interaction that we had with them. They wanted it to be a lot simpler. They wanted to be kept informed along the way. We were putting them a lot in black boxes. Just trust us, it'll happen. They wanted a lot more control over what happens, and then consistency was something that they cited over and over and over again. I can get a different answer depending on who I talked to, and unfortunately, we weren't doing any of these very well. We were trying really hard, but what we were trying to do it with was pure kind of people, paper, process things. And coming from the product side, I looked at that and said, okay, how do we do something from a technology? Because I think technology can solve all 4 of these things. And rather than attack each pain point individually, if we can build a system and the basis of a brand new interaction model, then we can just use that platform and put use cases on it and use the same platform to deliver a very different type of experience. And that's really what we wanted to do. It wasn't enough to get better. We wanted to get so much better that people took notice, because we understood that we had decades of legacy of doing things the same thing that we had to overcome. And to do that, you really have to sort of go over and above. And so what our answer to this was bring technology along and deliver what matters most to the customers, those 4 areas. And what I'm going to talk about today is our solution for that, which was the Xfinity Assistant. Now, the Xfinity Assistant is, at its most basic, you might think it is a chat bot. but it's actually a lot more than that. It's the face on 4 platforms that are technology rooted that we've been building for the last 2 years. And I want to talk about it. There are really 4 things that it does, and there's technology underpinning. The first one is identity. And the first 2 I'm going to talk about are cultural as much as anything. But identity for us is where it all starts. If we don't know who we're talking to, we can't have a new interaction model, because our new interaction model is actually one of frequent conversation. We often talk inside the business about, our total contact rate and how do we get our contact rate down lower and lower. I actually want 100% contact rate. I just want it proactively and helpfully and at the right time with customers in a helpful way. So we took a hard look at identity, and we started to make it a central component to our product experience. So culturally, for me, if you sign up for a service with us and we don't know who you are and you haven't verified your identity with us, that to me is as much of a miss as you didn't get the set-top box when the installer went in. It just, the way we do business has got to change. And so rather than chasing things, we want to streamline and develop the whole process, and it starts with knowing who you are. So again, we were using identity almost like it was a login to email and that's it. But now it's a central part, because that is how we're going to communicate to you. That's how we're going to tell you about the value you're getting. That's how we're going to prepare you for the storm that's coming. And that's how we're going to be able to let you control your experience and unlock everything. So increasingly over the next year, that will be a prerequisite to sale. We've already started it, and we're just starting to roll it out. The other thing we did there, especially as privacy comes along, is we went out and actually hired an expert in identity. So it wasn't sort of this side kind of engineering project. We actually treat it as a product. It's got its own product owner, its own designers, its own developers as well. But really looking at multi-factor authentication, household linking, identity, linking the profiles of the people in the home to the actual home, because we really feel like this is a key component. The second thing the Xfinity Assistant does is it's got basically an IQ, what we call IQ. It's an AI platform of all the data. And this also was a cultural change for us, but also an engineering feat, which I'll talk about in a second. But basically, what we were doing when we were trying to find call-in rates and breakpoints of the service, an engineer would take their tool, maybe it's a node engineer, or maybe it's the CPE engineer and he's got his tool, and they look at their data and then they point at each other. And that's what was happening consistently. I used to come up on these speeches, and I used to ask the folks at Comcast, who has the hardest job in the company? And it was always, the front line does, and they do have an incredibly difficult, but actually the hardest job in the company is the customer, because they were the only ones that had all of the experience at the customer level, that could tell you exactly what happened. So we went out and we built 2 key systems. One is called Timeline. It tracks every interaction, every marketing piece, every email, every tool, every login that you've used. And we use that for context, we use that for triggering events, we use that for triggering even our NPS surveys. And the second thing we built was we looked at all this data, from the node to the CPE to Wi-Fi signal strength, and we put it in a custody chain at the customer level. So no more were we having discussions with our engineers about nodes and customers that sort of look like this. We could actually say Charlie Herrin is having this problem because he's all green except for that last bit. So we actually strung it all together, and we said, engineers, here's a federated model. Give us a red-green on your component, and we'll tie that back to the customer. And that's how we're going to start to predict and talk to the customer about what's going on in a very personalized, unique way versus the sort of generic average way that our tools previously allowed us to do. That was a big event. And we actually pulled people off to the side, put money into it, and built a big platform that does just that. The third area is this proactive dialogue. Now the second 2 areas are, these are design differences. So the first 2 are sort of culturally thinking differently about the customer and our process. The second 2 are as we design our processes and our experience, we have to think more proactively and differently. So this is the notion. I always give the example of Radar O'Reilly. Few people younger than me remember who Radar O'Reilly is. But this notion that you should be able to tell a solution to a customer before they have a problem and reach out to them. We do a lot of waiting around for customers to let us know their problems. So this is the opposite. The technology that's underpinning this is all of our notifications and SMS and trigger events tied to that timeline platform that I talked about. So this is the notion of, if we're smart enough, we can let you know what's going to happen so you can be more prepared. Customers like it better. Our NPS is higher when they're engaged. We're delivering messages to them in real time, usually on SMS or notifications on a platform they like. And it helps them prepare and know that the company is looking out for their best interest. And that was a really big component. I want customers to realize that we're looking out for them. So the easiest way to think about this, two examples, is just, you know, on the X1, you'll get a notification that your batteries are going low. That's a really hard call, by the way, to diagnose with customers once their remote stops working. So we let them know ahead of time. Or, you know, a storm is coming. We do a lot of storm notifications. Those are two very basic use cases. But now we're kind of going more into, it looks like your camera's offline. It looks like your self-install kit is up and running, but it could be running better. So we're starting to get more and more proactive on this, and it's a big focus of ours. And the fourth is this notion of close the loop or the feedback loop to the AI engine as well. And this is the notion of letting customers know when something is done. This is the remove the worry part of the equation. So the first part was sort of save time. This is the remove the worry. And again, it's a design difference, because you really have to start to think from a customer standpoint, are there any questions left? Have I answered them all? And could I go any further? And so we're actually building, again, a platform on this whereby we can plug in any use case, and the response and the templates and the messages and the feedback coming back into the system are the same when we start to learn from it. Two examples I would give you. 2 weeks ago, I heard we had some retail technology issues, so I thought I would test it out. I took 2 boxes into the store. One is a self-install swap from an XB3 to an XB6. And the second, I thought, well, I'll get rid of this AO that I'm not using so much, and we'll see how well the retail team handles it. So I took both boxes in the store. They greeted me. It was super friendly. They scanned both boxes, took them, and said, "You're good to go. Would you like a receipt?" I said, "No," and I left the store. I was there maybe 45 seconds. By most measures, a really good experience. But then as I was going back, I realized, one, if we were really closing the loop, we wouldn't ask if you wanted a paper receipt. You would receive just a digital receipt, letting you know that your swap is done. The second is, a notification should come from the billing department saying, we took that AO off your bill. Because in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking, I got to go check and make sure that came off. And so that's what I mean about a complete close-the-loop experience. You really have to push your teams to think about this, and you need the tools that they can plug into to make this just automatic. So what's this start to look like to a customer? Well, first of all, the Xfinity Assistant is managing this dialogue. It's a two-way digital dialogue that's proactive, and it's based on data. And it's getting smarter and smarter, by the way. So we use some of those close-the-loops to feed back into the intelligent engine to know what were the questions that were asked after that interaction, and how do we start to strengthen it. So it feels like this. We're applying this pattern in these 4 platforms to many use cases. The first use case that I'm going to talk about is the activation use case. So what we've actually done is, in one of our markets, and we're scaling it, to sign up for the service, you must take the application itself. So the application is how you set up your service. You can't activate the modem without it. The reason we're doing that is we want to get out of the game of chasing adoption of these services. for us, xFi is the modem, it is the network, and it is the application that gives you control. So you need to have that application. Once we have that application, your identity is set and your communication channel is set. That's where we can be proactive, now that we know how to reach you. So what we did was we put the assistant inside the activation flow in the app, so it's helping the customer along. And if the customer does get stuck, it's passing you over to a chat agent with context about what you are doing so that they can then close it out. And you know, from our people side, the agents that are involved in this process love it because they're more informed, they're able to help more quickly. And from the customers, they're in channel, I download this app, I can chat right there if I have a problem, and I'm done. I don't have to pick up the phone, I don't have to go to visit a retail store, it's all right there. So again, having that assistant kind of with you from the beginning, showing you how to get help and how to proactively help the customer. The second is just proactive information itself. So in that third circle, I talk about the proactive work that we are doing. We launched over 13 journeys. This is everything from commercial onboarding to truck rolls to speed upgrades, et cetera, with these proactive messages. And we're all customers of Amazon, I'm assuming. It's no different than their playbook. Your package shipped, you bought it, it's going to be delayed, it's there at the door, here's a picture. It's the same notion. We'll send about 70 million messages this year. Our opt-out rate is very low because we make sure that it's only service related and it's helpful. So it's been very low. And just something as simple as this has, anyone that's engaged in this, their TNPS tends to be 20, 30 points higher. The call-in rate's lower, the churn rate's better. So again, keeping customers informed along the way is really, really important. The very first journey that we launched on this was moves. And what we found was we were giving moves information to customers on one sheet or one gigantic email, which they would then pack or lose as they were doing their move. The notion that I'm getting it on my cell phone when I need it is just a much better model. And you do have to build some technology. So again, these are all triggered by those events. These are those proactive. I see ingress from your home. Can we send a truck out? Or could you tighten your fittings? We're doing all of those kinds of things with this. They also see the Xfinity Assistant giving them recommendations about how to take advantage of more value. So in this case, you're not activated yet, but you can go ahead and get onto our Xfinity Wi-Fi hotspots, and we can help you do that. So context is really important. And it's not just customer-facing context, but it's agent context as well. So again, if I do have to hand off to a chat agent or get a phone call back to the customer, we always hand that agent the context of the call that the Xfinity Assistant gathered. Another example on context would just be something we're working on, which is we call it premise context. So when you're going through the buy flow, we should know what services were in there before, what's the makeup of the house, and we can make a recommendation of the services you should get. So that if you call in later, and let's say we recommended you get pods because that house had pods before, and you call up and you're talking about coverage issues and you didn't choose for pods, we have the context to say, previously that house had pods, I think you might want to opt in for that. And so this notion of using all of our information to make the best choice and recommendation for the customer is not something we just do naturally. It's something that we have to really sit about and design. And then lastly, a lot of people talk about omnichannel support, and we're going to put it everywhere and customers can just go to it. The way we think about it more is it's when the customer needs it, not necessarily where. It should be where, but the when part's really, really important. So it's not enough just to build all your self-service out in every channel and call it good. What you want to do is use the channels intelligently to be proactive. So in this case, this is what we've been doing this year. You have an appointment for an all-out, your TV's not working yet, I see you on the TV, I pop a message, do you still need that? And we cancel it. We're canceling millions of dollars of truck rolls this way with SMS. That's the primary method is SMS, but we do have it on the TV as well. And again, our previous methods were, we'll get people to call people at their house. And at best, you'll get 35% of people. If you send an SMS to them, you'll get 90% read in 3 minutes. And so it's about being sort of where the customer and when the customer needs you that's important. And if you're not looking at this in your own business, you really should, because it's saving us a lot of money that we can then pour into same-day service and same-day repair and reallocate what was really a wasted resource before. The other thing I want to talk about is, the way we're building this is inclusively. So that means localization for language, that means accessibility for all kinds of capabilities. We're passionate about it as a company. I know Tony Werner in particular is passionate about this, and we've been pushing the boundaries of accessibility for a long time. So solutions from the ground up are built with this inclusive design notion. So that, again, we're not just building an experience that works for, the mainstream, but for everybody. This is a picture of our eye gaze remote. And the impact for us has been fantastic. Let me give you a sense of the scale of what we're dealing with. Sorry, it's a little lag here. One is, I talked about those data elements. So we're processing about 6 billion a day. So we spent 2 quarters just figuring out how to process that much, because the trick is not gathering the data. The trick is gathering all those data elements and associating it in real time to the customer. Again, we're not like doing a join with nodes and then trying to figure it out. It's real time. I know that Charlie is having an issue with it right there at that point. So it's a lot of data that's getting processed. So it was quite a bit of an engineering feat just to kind of start to get that done. The voice remote is, I think, where this is going to go, in ambient voice. So that Xfinity Assistant is not just a visual representation, it's a dialogue on the TV as well. And we had to tell a lot of folks that we're not just building a chatbot, we're trying to build dialogue so that anyone can just talk to Xfinity and get help. And if you guys, just point of reference, if you're not looking at the smart speaker market, I really would look at it. It's incredible growth. And I think it's going to do more to change the nature of support interactions than anything that we've been dealing with. So this notion of just in your home being able to talk to your house and get recommendations and help is something that we're absolutely chasing. And the third is, obviously we're making a lot of predictive recommendations. Those are kind of low numbers in my opinion, 70,000 a day. I think we should be doing a lot more, and so that's our big focus, is proactive, predictive, this is what you should do. And again, we're starting with some really basic use cases, cameras offline, you've run several speed tests, those kinds of things. But again, we need to be more proactive and hand-holding with customers. And then, as I mentioned, we send a lot of SMS and notifications through our applications every week. The low opt-out rate of 0.3 is extremely low for the industry, and that to me just says customers are finding a lot of value in it. What it means in terms of our results, so in the Xfinity Assistant, what we measure is containment. So if you came to the Xfinity Assistant and you asked a question, did you show up in any other channel asking any other question? Retail, phone call, got a truck roll, showed up in chat again, etc. So roughly 50%, that's a 24-hour number, 42% is a 7-day number. We're handling it, and they're not coming back. And part of that, too, is we do these follow-ups. So if you went to the Xfinity Assistant and said, I need to restart my modem, or I'm having problems and we recommend restarting, we'll check back in with you and say, things look good on our end, do you agree or do you want a phone call? And again, that's the designed dialogue that we're going after versus sort of, we did something, call us if you have another problem. These technologies allow you to check in on customers and actually do a little bit of monitoring. It's saved us a ton in chat resources because we're handling, as we said, most of the easy stuff up front. And that frees up those chat agents to do more of the contextual handoffs that we talked about in these design processes. So it's been, I can't understate financially how big that's been for us. What a lot of companies have done that I've seen is when they launch chat, they don't have any sort of front end on it, and they get overwhelmed, and it becomes sort of a less, somewhat more convenient support channel than just calling. And so I think what we did that was unique is we tried to really put that agent in front before we expanded our use cases for chat, and it's enabled us to be a lot more consistent with the answers. I mean, that's the big thing about these design experiences, is what I love about that 48% containment. I know that 100% of customers got the exact same answer for that problem, and I think that's a big key. And then, as I mentioned, depending on the journey, the improvement in transactional NPS has been great. We've used this a lot in our fiber to the home rebuilds. Because you've got some extended outages there. Just being able to reach out and let customers know what's going on, when things are going to be resolved, takes a lot of worry off their plate, keeps them from calling the call centers, and I think they appreciate, and they show it in their NPS, they appreciate those being kept in the loop. So we've got a lot more to do. The proactive piece is key for us, and we're just scratching the surface on some of the artificial intelligence. But some of the things that we've been able to do that I'm really excited about is we just finished up this quarter. We've got this platform built, and what we actually did is we had frontline techs, frontline CAEs, and our business intelligence folks, got them in a room, and they're building on the platform, and they're starting to create conversations. So where I see this going, ultimately, is you would have a programming pod in a call center where they're actually writing the answers that scale to the rest of the company. Our friends at Sky have started to do something similar, and I think this is long overdue, but it's a brand new interaction model for Comcast for sure, and one that we're very excited about, and we think it's really going to fuel us to go even further in our customer experience journey. Yep. So that's it. I'll take a question or two. Thanks. All right, thank you.
Good, thank you, Charlie. Hey, we're not going to take a break, so we're going to take advantage of you all in your seats, and we have a treat to close out the afternoon. So please give a warm Expo welcome to Jana Henthorn, President and CEO of the Cable Center.